What we do here is go back.
Welcome. You guys right on in at the right time. I'm here to open up some eyes about some things that I think will really help some of you guys, especially the guys. Yes, this is for the women. I want you to hear this too. But specifically, I'm speaking to the men today. As a servant of Jesus Christ, I've come along this journey as a man of God. And I'd like to say I started out arms open wide, ready for God to use me. I just turned over my life to Him and just began to serve Him. Woo! Jesus, I wish that was my story. But unfortunately, it's not. Excited about it. But many years ago, I wasn't so excited about it. And I got the call from God. People prophesied to me that, oh, are you ready to be a pastor? When are you going to start pastoring? Are you going to answer your call? People who didn't even know me will walk up to me and ask me these things. It was like 7 people, different services we would go to. I would say yes, but it was all a front. It wasn't a real yes. It was, I don't want anybody to ask me any questions, including dragging me behind her. Why was she dragging me? Because I was stubborn. Because I was locked up inside of lust, money, wanting money, even though the job I was getting wasn't making enough money, but I was sure trying. I was working all kinds of hours. And God forbid the ministry got in the way of me trying to get those hours because we needed to put food on the table. So money, my job, worried about losing my job, worried about paying the rent. My attitude and the very fact that my heart was not yielded to God. And I wanted to make her happy. I gave her everything she needed for ministry. Just as so long as she was on that side and she could be religious and I could be on my side and act like I'm religious, but still be a dirtbag. Just putting it simple. Let's be real. I'm not saying every man that hasn't answered this call is a dirtbag. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with a man who hasn't stepped into the role that his wife has decided to take. I'm not saying that. God works on each and every person in their own timing. And we can go over biblical scriptures of who and how and where that happened. Like Moses. Even Gideon. Gideon asked God too many times, in my opinion, God, is this really you? If it's really you, let me tell you something. We know. We know when it's time to step up. But fear of not knowing what to do, fear of failure, and fear of success have tripped too many men up. And let's be honest, when it comes to the position of a woman in authority and a man being subjugated under her, when you're talking about man and woman, it can cause serious problems. If you look it up, they say it's very hard for a woman who is dominant to be able to stand, to be able to live with, to be able to have patience with a man who is passive, who is in the background, who's not stepping up. It's hard on a woman. 1, because she's made up that way, and 2, because God order says that the man submits himself to Jesus Christ, and then the woman submits herself to him. So what we have is the call and it being fulfilled. Somebody's got to do it. The woman's going to do it. You can try to tell me God says it's not supposed to be so, but I have some evidence in the Bible that tells you otherwise also. But for right now, the woman's leading. The man's in the background and he's not there at all. That causes problems. Why is this happening? Ladies, I want to tell you something. You're doing the right thing. Don't let anybody tell you something. But your man has to have a place, and you can't force it on him. Whatever it may be. It could be a prayer call. It could be communion. It could be any kind of role that you can put him in. And yes, he does have to be able to be sanctified. The man doesn't have to come out and preach, at least not right away. But you have to give place for that man. You have to give him a chance to be in charge of something. Men, you can't be worried about how it looks for your woman to be in charge. You can't be intimidated. If God called her, she ran with it and you didn't, guess what? It's still going to have to get done. And you can still support her. You can be her biggest cheerleader. But at some point, being in the background won't be good enough. We have to find some kind of way to get in there and show that you are still in charge, even though she's leading. A tough task, don't I know it? But what has to happen is, while she's still leading, he still has to be the head. Even if it's just an acknowledgement. Even if it's just, hey, I'm apostle, bad to the bone, so-and-so, ready to cast out demons, but this is the head of my life, my husband, who supported me every bout of the way. And the husband stands up, shows his pretty face, and then sits back down. You can start there. You still have the great story of Joyce Myers and her husband, Dave. Dave is in charge of the administrative. She does all the preaching. She's the face. People hardly even know Dave exists, except for the fact that she mentions him quite often. But God's order, ultimately, with the woman being the weaker vessel, is for the man to be up front. It's scientifically proven that men are built to be able to handle stress more than women. Women have to deal with a lot of other things, especially when you add the things of being a mother, being pregnant, having to take care of a lot of things that men just can't do. Men are supposed to be the burden bearers. We're supposed to take charge. We're supposed to be out in front. That's the way we're designed. So why? Why aren't we out front? It's real simple. Because you haven't seen yourself there. We haven't seen ourselves saved. We haven't seen the goodness of the Lord. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Many of us have not tasted and really seen how good the Lord is. And be honest. I was there. A lot of the stuff my wife was doing, it seemed too out of control. It didn't seem like it took all that. It seemed just too religious. It seemed way out there. I didn't want to be. I was even embarrassed sometimes because I was wondering, people were looking at me like I was being too religious. But at the end of the day, there's a little boy inside of us that wants to hold on to something. There's a something inside of us men. Women, there's a something on the inside of your husband and your boyfriend that hasn't been spoken to. Aside from being elevated or acknowledged as the head, aside from letting him know that he is in charge and that he is the breadwinner, aside from all of these other things, for him having a place in the ministry, inside of a man, every man, deep inside of him is at the core a piece that needs to be solved to complete him. And if that piece doesn't get answered or acknowledged, then you'll be dancing around for a very long time trying to get him to come around. For me, it was actually having to acknowledge the death of my mother. I never forgave God, And in some cases, I didn't forgive her. I didn't forgive her for helping me become a better man because I grew up without my father, though he's in my life now. There was a lot of questions on the inside of me as a man in the world that weren't answered. But now you're trying to get me to answer questions in God's kingdom when I hardly don't know anything. And that's a very scary place for a man to be. At the core, I'm telling you right now, men, if you can find that thing in the core and the inside of you, women, if you can develop that on your man and not beat him up. Now, let me just stop right there. You can't beat him up. You can't beat a man. If you look at the Bible, they have an animal in there called a mule, a donkey, an ass. They are one of the most stubborn and obstinate creatures that you can find, but they are very good workers. They can carry a very long way, but once they decide to stop, they're not moving. They won't do any more work. The inside of a man is like that. If you try to beat him, coerce him, shame him, threaten him, you might get something out of him, especially out of a passive man. But you won't get a good work. You'll get a half-hearted man. To get the full man, you have to get to that core and pull it out. Pull out the pain that's been locked inside of him. Pull out the passion that's been locked inside of him. When you pull those things out, you'll pull out the promise. Inside of me also was the very great desire to answer the need to feel like a man, for real. The reason I was looking at all those other things, for money, for lust, excuse me. The reason I was looking for these other things is because on the inside I needed those things. I thought I needed them to answer the question, am I man enough? And your man is asking the same thing every day. Even when he's giving those outbursts, when he shies back, when he pulls away, when he goes somewhere else hours on end, when he turns to porn, when he turns to video games. He's asking, he's begging for somebody or something to say, you are a man enough. You are good enough. You are strong enough. And women, I promise you, if you could just do that, don't even talk about ministry. Just let him know he's good enough. Let him know he's strong enough. Let him know he's man enough. Take the time to find out what's going on the inside and don't make him feel bad about it. Let him know he's safe. He might look strong. He might look like an alpha man. He might look like he's got it all together. But you could be that safe place for him to be open, to be vulnerable. You will find that man. You will unlock that core. And you will begin to invite your man into the work. This is going to be a part of two things. This video, this telecast, this stream is going to be for my messages for men called Face the Future Like a Man. And it's also part of our marriage moments that my wife and I will continue to do throughout the year, because we want to talk to you couples and you married people out there in ministry and outside of ministry. God wants to bring people together. The enemy is putting the institution of marriage under attack, because once he can pull that apart, then he can pull down the foundation of everything else. Strengthen the men and the women watching this and the marriages that come along with it. So keep following, keep plugging in, keep talking to me, and keep asking questions.